Mantua, Ohio is a railroad town, boasting a creepy town center with an old railway station. Surrounded by a rural landscape peppered with brick buildings, sprawling properties with dense woods and cornfields, guarded by sunny farmhouses of varying age and size. 44 South runs one lane each direction. I made this drive regularly to visit my then boyfriend. Familiar with the area, I would usually have music on, enjoying the drive in the fresh air. One day in the middle of summer in 2011, I was driving on 44 South into Mantua, making my usual trip in the mid-afternoon on a beautiful clear day. I passed a quiet area just a few miles from my destination. On the right, houses on 2 to 3 acre lots with big front yards, longer driveways and attached garages shaded by tall trees with thick foliage, with backyards full of dense woods. On the left, across the road, there is a cornfield bordered by a deep grassy drainage culvert stretching several miles long. I see something that looks off up ahead. It's hard to make out, but there's something on the opposite side of the road where the cornfields are. It's a ways off and hard to make out, but it's clearly a large brown hairy mass right next to the road. It's too dark in color to be a dead deer. Maybe an escaped cow. No, not that either. Something about this mass on the side of the road is unlike anything I've ever seen, and I just can't figure it out because I keep having to look back at the road. I see it move. Maybe whatever it is isn't roadkill, and it's just an animal grazing on the side of the road in the culvert. I rolled my window down to get a better look. I slow down a little as I pass by, and all at once, I realize what I'm seeing. The hairy mass is a dead dog, being eaten by another dog. The biggest dog I've ever seen, with the freakiest, emptiest eyes. As I pass by, this thing pulls its face out of the dog carcass it's eating, to look up at my car and lock eyes with me. It looked right through me, and it felt like what I can only describe as pure evil. I pass it in my car at about 40 miles an hour. As I start to freak out and roll up my window, I check my mirror for a double take because I absolutely do not believe what I saw. And I see that its head is already back down again, eating and out of view with no other defining features. It was totally unbothered by my car. I slow down, then speed up, then slow down, then speed up again. I want to know what I saw, but I completely freak out. I look for the nearest driveway on my right side, maybe 50 to 75 yards away, and peel into the driveway to turn around and go back. As I put my car in park, I see that a man is home and is sitting in a lawn chair outside his garage, face parallel to the road, blissfully unaware of what's just up the road behind him, while his 2 Labradors run around him. He sees me and assumes that I'm just using his driveway to turn around. But it's unsettled when I drove almost all the way up the driveway, park my car, and get out, still freaking out. "Take your dogs inside, you need to get inside your house," I tell him. I tell him what I saw, and he gets up out of his lawn chair to look where I'm pointing, but the trees at the edge of his property block the scene from view, and it's just a bit too far. I get back in my car and keep warning him to get his dogs inside. If our places had been exchanged, I probably would have called the cops on someone who came ripping into my driveway, rambling about some wild animals in a panic. I was terrified and full of adrenaline, with no regard for ruining this guy's peaceful afternoon. I don't remember how I left it with him, but got back in my car, backed out on 44, and headed back north from the way I came to get a better look at this thing. Still from the safety of my moving vehicle. I pass where it was and it's gone. I drive back and forth one more time in disbelief at the whole thing, further back than I thought to be safe, thinking I'd underestimated the distance between the carcass and the house I stopped at. But there was a hole in the corn where wherever this thing was had clearly drugged the dog it was eating to finish away from the road. I remember sitting stopped on the side of the road after turning around again and heading back south, looking across the road at this hole in the corn that looked far too innocent to do justice to what I had just seen. No one driving by would even notice it. I had my head on my swivel, around my car, locked my doors, and something told me I wouldn't see it again and to get out of there, so I did. When I passed the house again, the man and dogs weren't in the yard anymore. The garage was closed. Completely rattled, I called my then boyfriend, whose house I was headed to, as I drove away, but if I remember correctly, he didn't answer. When I got there, I was so shaken up I couldn't make sense of what I had seen. This was right after high school, and still, he lived with his folks in a cold, creaky farmhouse in Ravenna they had just moved into, and I did not feel safe in the house that night. It brought back all the childhood fears of being afraid of the dark and what was under the bed, like it could be anywhere. I remember like it was yesterday, and even though I've shared this story with a few friends, I've never written it down. Whatever this thing was, it was built like a dog but bigger than any dog I've ever seen. It was very dark brown with dirty hair. I've considered that it might have been a black bear with mange, but even though I only got a quick glimpse, it didn't move like a bear. And the piercing eyes in broad daylight, those were something else. It was canine, not Bigfoot or any other common myth that I'm aware of. Maybe someone here will know. I haven't done too much research into what it can be because I think part of me is scared to know what it could be. Black dog, werewolf, I have no idea. It was big, at least 200 pounds, maybe bigger. The dog it was eating was also quite large. I'm a skeptic. To this day, this is the only unexplainable creepy thing I've ever seen with my own two eyes that truly shook me to my core. For months I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it still scares and disturbs me to tell the story. There's weird stuff out there in the rural Midwest. My brother and I decided to go camping in Yosemite National Park. We were going to spend the day hiking and taking in the sights. We'd been on the trail all day and the sun was beginning to go down. We decided to start heading back the way we came when we realized an eerie silence had come over the entire woods. No animals, no wind, nothing. It was extremely disturbing. Then we heard footsteps like something heavy moving through the brush to the left of the trail. We couldn't get our eyes on it, but it sounded very big because of the way the fallen branches and leaves were crunching beneath it. We quickened our pace, and to our horror it seemed to be keeping pace right along with us. When we quickened our pace, it quickened along with us. We paused for a moment in silence, trying to listen, to get an idea of how close this thing was. That's when we heard a branch snap maybe 20 feet to our left, and the only way to describe it was a deep, guttural, throaty growl. I was frozen with fear. My brother grabbed my hand and pulled me as we started running up the trail, down the trail as fast as we could to make it back to the car, and sped out of there. We contacted the fishing game and wildlife about what we heard but never got an update. I don't know what that thing was, but I don't know if I'll ever go hiking again. True story from about 20 years ago or so. I'd been living in the San Francisco Bay Area, but originally from the East Coast, and I'd never been truly camping. My girlfriend at the time was from Cali, and was used to camping, so I went with her a few times. This was my first time with her, and her young son of 5 came with us to Big Sur. It was cool and had been rainy, but this time it was just misty and cold when we arrived. We drove to one of those camp places that had a small parking lot, which was empty except for us. So we set up the tent a little bit from the car and proceeded to try and get a fire started. And she got mad because she asked me to get things started and I had no idea what to do. Anyhow, so fire started. It was cold and wet, and after eating we all crammed into a 2-person tent. Neither of us were gun owners. I had brought a small knife and mini baseball bat, just in case, because I was not really comfortable camping. In the middle of the night, I was awoken by something walking slowly around the tent. I was so scared that I couldn't figure out if it was 2 or 4-legged. I didn't hear any other sound except what sounded like something trying not to sound too loud, at least in my mind. This went on for what seemed like 10 or 15 minutes, and I was scared shitless, and didn't move but kept my hand on the bat next to me. I remember assuming it was a bear or mountain lion, which I had no experience at all with. Eventually it sounded like it walked away slowly, but I wasn't really able to get much sleep. At first all night I slowly got out of the tent and sat on a park bench that was near us. After a little time I see someone walking through the woods towards me, which again scared me as we had seen no one since being there. Eventually I see that it is a ranger or police officer, and he seems to have his hand on or near his holster. I'm wearing camo pants, have a beard and look pretty scruffy, and I am a bit worried because I have some weed on me and the knife and bat. He asked me my name, what I am doing there, and I explained that I am with my girlfriend and son who are still in the tent. After checking my ID and seeing them, he told us that there had been reports of a crazy guy going around and attacking campers in the area, and to be careful and to about leaving the area, which we did. Because the weather sucked anyways, as it had been raining there with no prints or other signs of what was walking around us. But it was scary for me, a city guy, not knowing if it was animal or a crazy man, and I was super hesitant to go camping for a bit after that.